More Heart Than Talent Radio.
More Heart Than Talent Radio is brought to you today by my Jeffrey Combs Inner Circle Coaching Program. If you find yourself struggling to find your breakthrough and frustrated with your results, join my Jeffrey Combs Inner Circle Coaching Program. It's a private video coaching call every other week where I'll be teaching the skill of the week followed by coaching. JCIC members one-on-one live for observation. All calls are recorded and posted in the JCIC members area. Members will have access to the private JCIC Facebook group where they can ask questions, interact with me, my Golden Mastermind team, the other JCIC members, and receive any support required in their breakthrough process. When you enroll, you'll receive the new members welcome kit, which includes my new Breakthrough Factor audio program, my Breakthrough Accelerator course, my digital coaching program, and so much more, all for $197. This is no ordinary coaching program. Sign up now to begin your breakthrough process now. Go to goldenmastermind.com/circle to get started today. Good afternoon, everyone. Jeffrey Combs, president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. Good to have you aboard here for the Tuesday afternoon More Heart Than Talent Facebook Live. Today, 8/14/18, 7 effects of growing up in an addicted home. That is the 7 effects of growing up in an addicted home. That also can be a home with dysfunction, a home that had challenges. So if you're on this call today, there's going to be some great content for you. I'm going to move into the inspirational portion of today's call in one moment. First, I have a few quick announcements for you. This Saturday in the Park, remember the old song by Chicago? This Saturday, I will be in one of my favorite cities in the United States, Los Angeles, California. And that will be not at the Marina Del Rey Marriott, where I've hosted my events in Los Angeles for the last several years. I'll be going back to an old staple, the Hilton Hotel at LAX Airport on Century Boulevard. And I'll be sharing the stage with a very iconic woman, Brittany Cara. Brittany is an exceptional woman in the food and vaccination industry, so I'll be sharing the stage with Brittany this Saturday, it's August 18th from 9 until 4. Brittany will also be a guest on this call. The following Saturday, I will be in Atlanta, Georgia. That will be on the 25th. And then September 15th, I will be in St. Louis. September 22nd, I'll be in Saddlebrook, New Jersey with Diane Hunt. So those are some of the events where you can see me live in the next 1 month. And today's call, as I said, we're going to be covering the 7 effects of growing up in an addicted home. And if you're on the call and you've been a coaching client of mine, then you know that the value that my coaching can deliver for you or your teammates. And if you're seeking a coach or you know someone that's seeking a coach, I'm going to do a little offer today, a special offer today. And that would be, I'm looking for 2 people who want to take advantage of a free 20-minute coaching call. And if you do hire me, there's going to be an additional $2,000 value add to that coaching package. So be sure and contact me as soon as possible through Facebook Messenger with your phone number. And with that, we're going to move into the inspirational portion of today's call. Now, as I grew up in the network marketing and direct sales industry back in the 1980s, yes, 1980, that was my first network marketing company, 1988. I saw my very first network marketing presentation in 1975, a company called Shaq Lee. And early in my career, I learned to use a whiteboard. So I love to use a whiteboard. I'm going to use a whiteboard throughout my More Heart Than Talent lives and also through my Inner Circle coaching program, JCIC. That's the Jeffrey Combs Inner Circle coaching program. So throughout the content today, I'll bring key points and I'll use my little whiteboard. This is not a 4x6 or a 6x4. This is an 11x14 inch. So I can still deliver the same content and the same point because I understand the inner game of the delivery. So if you grew up in an addicted home, here's what that means. It means that you grew up in a degree of predictability and unpredictability. That household becomes predictable in its own predictable state. If you're upstairs and downstairs conflict is going on, your body's going to react to the stimulus before you get downstairs. And once you get downstairs and you go out the door and you're going to school, your body's going to be in fight or flight based on the events that you repress, that you hold on to, the events that are embarrassing, the events that are challenging, the events that are humiliating, the events that cause you anxiety. When you experience anger in two people and you're in that circle of influence, you can feel that heat. You can feel some of that conflict going on in your body, and your body starts to react by going into fight or flight. That is what is called anxiety. Anxiety is anger, hate, resentment, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, overwhelmed feelings, grief, and apathy. And as you go to school and you're worried about someone finding out what's going on in your household, and you tell people you come from a great household or you have great parents, whatever you tell people, as you begin to live in that lie and you live in that uncomfortability, your body starts to give off an emotional response, and emotions give off a corresponding response. So as you grow up in fight or flight, you're a child in fight or flight, there's a high probability you're a grown-up in fight or flight. And that is what creates this word. Now, this word shows up very frequently in American culture. It's called worry. And then the other tense of it is worrying. Now, if you're someone who's worried all the time, or you're always worried, what you're edifying to your brain and your body, to your conscious, unconscious, is that I'm in fight or flight all the time. Now, I've had people try and seduce me into believing that worry is such a way of life that it's actually a good situation. I'm always worried about my kids. Well, it'd be different if it said, I'm aware of my children. I'm aware of my children, rather than I'm worried about them all the time. Worry has no value, and it keeps you in an unresolved, overwhelmed state. Now, here are the effects of growing up in an addicted home. Number one, it's very common to have fear of authority figures. And the fear of authority figures means there's usually someone who's either aggressive or passive aggressive, who you don't quite understand their motives and their reasons, and you start to have anxiety about conflict with them. And this type of energy also brings about making mistakes, getting in trouble, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, being rejected, being abandoned. Now, this kind of energy will show up frequently when you start a business from the comfort of your home and you're required to pick a telephone up or use a keypad or keyboard and reach out to someone. Because if you're afraid you're going to make a mistake and get in trouble, then that's an unresolved issue left from past events. And as you begin to separate your feelings from the events that shape them, then you're not the mind-body connection to the events that shape those feelings anymore. And if you're in a business that requires sales, marketing, and branding, it's your responsibility to understand the law of numbers. Now, the business is not a numbers game. The business is about products, services, benefits, and features. And you're not in business to help people. You're in business for profit. Now, helping people is also a component of business, but the main reason you're in business is to create your livelihood. And your livelihood is going to dictate whether you live a good life or whether you live an average life. And this comes down to your skills, habits, and mindset. But if you enter and engage in a business and you're overwhelmed and you're worried all the time, that's a direct reflection of the household and the events that you grow up in. Now, it's not always the household, because it can show up in the grade school, it can show up on the schoolyard, any multitude of situations, because your brain takes a picture of events and gives it meaning. And the meaning that you hold on to dictates whether you're either in recovery or whether you're in addiction. And if you stay in an emotionally addicted state, then you're going to hold on to repressed feelings, and those repressed feelings are what keep you creating the gap and a delay in your communication. That's why you'll say, well. That's why you'll have challenges articulating your feelings. You'll have challenges being able to create a writing style that's conducive to attracting followers. If you're using Facebook, LinkedIn, if you're using Instagram or any other means of social media to create a culture, it's going to be your responsibility to be able to write content that people find interesting. And the more interesting you are, the more you're going to get rewarded for your edge rank, your following, and people that start to follow you start to feel you. And when you start to come from that sense of power rather than force, and you try and force yourself to do a situation, then you're going to avoid. And that's unfortunately one of the byproducts of growing up in an addicted household. It creates a lot of avoidance tendencies. And if you find yourself avoiding succeeding because you have anxiety about failing, then you fail by avoiding success. And that's what many people do. They avoid success because they're not sure if they can handle the outcome. But what they can handle is being disappointed. And so they perpetuate the same situation over and over to recreate the same feeling that they're neurochemically addicted to. Now, when you get to a place where you're done with it, when you get to a place where the pain is great enough, when you're to a place where you're going to quit your job, then it's your responsibility to understand what you're going to be compensated for. And as you own a business in free enterprise and you're an entrepreneur, you're no longer a sole proprietor, you own a corporation, you own an LLC, you're in business for self, possibly with others, but definitely with yourself. It's going to be your responsibility to create a livelihood. That livelihood is going to come from the skills, habits, and mindset of a new brain that you begin to foster. And that fostered new identity that you're creating is going to come from letting go of old stories and anxieties that happen in childhood, teenage years, in your 20s and 30s, because you're going to have challenges succeeding when you hold on to the old you. Now, the old you, the addicted you, the old you that wants to be right, the old you that wants to avoid, the old you that procrastinates, it's the new you that you step into that you're able to separate your feelings from the events and then create a different energy. Now, that energy that you're now starting to create comes from a place called esteem. You start to have a higher regard for self. And in corporate American jobs, you're taught how to perform admirably. And you perform admirably based on the skills and the habits and the mindset of that career. But what you're going to find is that career is probably not going to be the same kind of skills, habits, and mindset required to be effective in business ownership. So if you hold on to a series of events that don't serve you, then you'll recreate the same situation over and over to fulfill the same feelings that keep you emotionally addicted. And that emotional addiction that you create now is a very high tolerance. Because if you're 30, you're 40, and you're a chronic avoider, then there's a very high tolerance to that. And that comes from the events that shaped your feelings in childhood of not being good enough. And what does good enough really mean? Well, good enough is permission-based as you let go of the events and feelings that keep you feeling that way. Now, if you can't present because you haven't succeeded, well, then that's the I haven't, so I can't situation. And you're in a place now that it's time for you to let go. So some of the events that affect you the most in childhood, living in an addicted home, is this. If you're the first child of an addict, then you're an adult child of your ACOA, adult child of alcoholics, adult child of addicts. And that means that you're the first child. That means that you typically have to take care of someone, pick up for someone. You have to be worried. You have to be aware of what's going on. And it creates fight or flight. Now, if you're the first child, oftentimes you'll protect the second child or the third child, which now creates codependence. And if you become the caretaker of your family, there's a high probability that you're the caretaker of the same family in different situations. That term is called codependence. And codependence is when you over-obligate, enable, do more for others than do for self. Now, that's not a black and white situation, because fanfare for the common man, lending a hand to others, those are still good attributes. But when you do it from an addicted point where it's your personality, that's when you're out of control. And then in that type of situation, you'll tend to attract your reality people and situations to fulfill the feelings of being emotionally addicted. And that's what codependency is, where you caretake, over-obligate. You have a team that doesn't perform to your standards, so they can't do it perfectly, so you do it for them. And since they can't do it to your standards, then you're disappointed in them. This is a very common commonality. Instead of looking at self, you typically will, this type of personality, instead of looking at self, will direct their energy at others so they can be and stay disappointed. Now, number 3, becoming an addict or marrying one. One of the main effects of growing up in an addicted household is there's a high probability that the heightened sense of awareness you lived in created so much fight or flight in your body, and you repressed so much of your feelings, and you've stuffed your feelings that you too have become an addict. You're not an addict because of the gene pool. You're not an addict because of the DNA. You're an addict because of the events that you repressed, and those repressed feelings form emotions, and those emotions are anger, hate, resentment, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, overwhelmed feelings, grief, and apathy. Those are the emotions that lead to avoidance. Those are the emotions that lead to low self-esteem. Those are the emotions that lead to an addiction. And you're not an addict because you grew up with addicts. You're an addict because of what you hold on to. As you begin to separate your feelings from the events, now that's a state called recovery. Recovery is a state of being that you be and stay in. It's a state that you're always in a recovery state in a very relaxed body. It's a different set of reflexes. And in that type of recovered body, it's much more easy and effortless to be able to have communication. It's easy and effortless to qualify leads for your time because you're not holding on to past rejections and past abandonments, bring it into your present tense, worried about the outcome of a future conversation, so overwhelmed that you end up the refrigerator. Now, if you're understanding if you're following what I'm delivering here for you, now you're in a place where you can separate your feelings from the events. That is the term let go. Now, let go is 5 letters with an exclamation point that is talked about but seldom understood. Here's how it's spelled, let go, with an exclamation point. It's right there, let go. So as you begin to let go, now letting go means separating your feelings. What does that actually mean? It means that the mind-body connection of the event no longer has significance. It means that your childhood doesn't have the same significance anymore because you've forgiven others who've hurt you. You've let go of events that were traumatic. You've let go of events that were humiliating. You're no longer the mind-body connection to the events. You're able to be you and be free. You may have been held back in the 3rd grade and called dumb or stupid or other names that children who would traumatize you would say, but that has no significance today at 30 years old or 40 years old unless you give it meaning. And the more meaning you give an event that's unresolved, the more it becomes an addicted state. And the more you hold on to it, the higher the tolerance you create, meaning it's more challenging the older that you get. Because you now are neurochemically addicted to a set of feelings that you perpetuate over and over to create the same event that you don't understand. And by saying, I don't understand, I don't know, I don't get it, I don't see why I do this, my whole childhood was a blur, I don't have a good memory. When you continue to talk like this, you can't possibly let go. Recovery requires the language of recovery. But when you try and recover in a language of addiction, you're communicating by being non-committed. When you say guess, kinda, okay, yeah, and sure, then you can't possibly let go. When you say I'm committed, I'll be sober today, I can go the rest of this day without being critical. I commit to being able to devote one time to fine-tuning and refining the skills of prospecting today. I can commit to that. I dedicate a block of time at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Now, when you're committed, it's a different energy that you bring to the table. Now you're coming from a place called awareness. And that awareness is consciousness. And consciousness elevates self into a state of energy where you're a lot more enlightened. You're not anxious. You're not telegraphing your feelings. And your emotions aren't giving off a corresponding response based on an unresolved issue. Now, this is science. The more you understand the content I'm sharing you, then you can also let go of these other events. So when you grow up in a household that's addicted, there's also going to be victims in the household. And if you're still playing the role of a victim, it's now time you can move into the role of a victor. A victor is able to separate their feelings from the events, let go of the low energy that they live in, move beyond how do I, and live in an I am state. Anyone can recover just like anyone can succeed. The fundamentals, the foundations of transformation are you having a basic understanding of why you do what you do, separating your feelings from those events, being present, being here, being now, changing your communication style. So your communication style is present moment awareness. It's a lot more persuasion oriented. You're learning how to persuade yourself, how to be and stay in conscious awareness. You persuade yourself to be in a relaxed body. You don't find yourself at the refrigerator as often. You have a better understanding of your relatives and people in your influence. You're able to let go of people easily and effortlessly without feeling guilt, shame, or resentment. And in that type of energy, you move from being a victim where you brood and pout. A large percent of society is very sensitive and very defensive. They play the role of the victim. These people's egos and and their personalities get bruised and hurt very easily. They're looking for someone to offend them because they're offendable. They're looking for someone to disappoint them because they're disappointable. These type of people are these two words. These type of people are called flaw finders. A flaw finder is a person who goes out of their way to find what's wrong with you in other situations. You can deliver great service and great value to these people, but no matter what you do, they're going to find the flaw. It's going to be your responsibility, the ability to respond, to be able to easily and effortlessly let go without feeling like you have to be in control of an outcome. And that's another byproduct of growing up in an addicted home. If you grew up in an addicted home, the home is usually out of control. And as a child, you're trying to find a way to be in control of out of control. And this often creates the same situation, is that you're in control of being out of control of the control you're controlling. And as you're having a better understanding of why you do what you do, then you're going to be able to easily and effortlessly let go. Letting go is a skill. It's a skill practiced daily. Letting go becomes not only an art, letting go becomes a science. And once you start to understand the science of letting go, you don't find yourself going over the top. You don't go over the bridge. You don't go off the cliff. You take a deep breath, you release, and you let go. Because you're skilled at separating your feelings from the events that shape them. And as you're able to let go, then the events that happened in your childhood, the events that happened in your teen years, the events that happen in your 20s don't have the same significance. And in that type of elevated state, now you're transmuting your energy from esteem. Esteem is not competence, and esteem is not confidence. Esteem is being good enough. It's self. It's giving self permission to be comfortable, giving self permission to be successful on your terms. But if your ego requires recognition and rewards, which that is a part of why we play the game, but if you're recognition reward conscious, then you'll do more for recognition and rewards than you will do for profit. And that's what many people do. They get so pumped up, they get so geeked because they're using an ulterior outside force to fulfill their low self-esteem. But esteem does not require an outside force. Esteem is esteem. Esteem is good enough. And when you live in that esteem, you are love. And when you bring love to the table, when you bring love into the house, when you bring love into the restaurant, other people feel you. And that's that felt type of energy that magnetizes people to your reality. And you can unequivocally separate your feelings from the events. Everyone has a series of events that have shaped their personality, because your personality is a direct reflection of your personal reality. The way you perceive a situation will determine how you create an outcome. And as you change your perception, you can unequivocally change your outcome. But if you have to be right, if you have to be in conflict, then you're going to be enforced, and you'll require a counterforce in a black-white dichotomy so you can be in conflict. And this is what happens when you grow up in conflict. One of the main situations that happens in an addicted household is there's a lot of conflict. And if you become the conflict neutralizer, or if you become the counterforce to someone else's conflict, and this becomes an identity, and this will show up throughout your life until you come to an awareness where you're ready to separate your feelings from those events. And as you step into that power is now esteem. And that esteem attracts to your reality a much higher conscious level of entrepreneur, soul looking for a human experience, person who is ready to commit, rather than people who have money excuses, can't, have to run it by someone else, will get back to you later, people who see the value. When you're communicating to people who have no value, it's hard for them to make a decision because they can't commit. But when you start to encounter people who value life and have a different value system, these are the type of people in a much higher level of recovery. They've separated their feelings from events. They're much more enlightened. They're much more spiritual. They're much more aware. They're more friendly. They have a different kind of energy. These are the people you seek to attract rather than the kind of people you're in conflict with. Like I said, if you grew up in a house with conflict and you had to be the neutralizer, or you were the counterforce to someone else's force, there's a high probability you'll continue to attract people who will violate you. And you will wonder how and why this happens to you. So the next one is codependence. When you grow up in an addicted home, there's a high probability that either you or one of your siblings will become codependent, meaning that you lose your identity, you lose your innocence. You have to step up to the plate and become a grown-up before your time. You give your money to your parents to support the home. You have to work in an early age. You don't get to play sports because you have to have a job. Any multitude of situations that robs you of your childhood can tend to create a codependence. Over-obligating, enabling, doing more for others than you'd ever do for self, spending too much time getting ready to get ready. These are all some of the situations that foster codependence. There's a great book called Codependent No More, Chapter 5, Detachment by Melody Beatty. Unequivocally a book that I would recommend that you read. And then number 6 is low self-esteem. Well, low self-esteem really means a low regard for self. That means that you derive your esteem by over-obligating and doing situations for others. Now, you can have high self-confidence and still have low self-esteem. You can be very productive in a job and still be challenged emotionally about self. There are many people who can do more for others than they could ever do for self because they're too guilty based on some of these events that have shaped their feelings. It's very common to be a superstar employee for someone, be a great office manager, be a manager of someone else's business, take that business to the top, not have ownership, not get compensated what you're worth, then feel resentful, then go out and start your own business and fall flat on your you-know-what. And if that is you, you want to take a good look at why you do what you do and understand that this is a word that you want to be able to incorporate in your communication style. It's DESERVE, deserve. You want to be able to deserve. Deserve means deservier, or day of service. And the more that you can understand the difference between serving and service, you want to deliver great service. You're not in business to serve everyone, it's service. You deliver great value. Service and value is what allows you to raise your value in the marketplace. So in that situation, in esteem, you can raise your value. As you raise your value, you can ask for different compensation. When you devalue yourself, it doesn't mean you're worth very much in free enterprise. It relegates you to having a job where you can be paid what a job is worth. As you begin to step into your power, separate your feelings from events, no longer be the mind-body connection to the events that shape your feelings, you're now stepping into a place called recovery. There's a really great 12-step program that's really started to take off in the last few years. It's called ACOA, Adult Child of Addicts, Adult Child of Alcoholics. The 12 steps and 12 traditions of that 12-step program are exceptional. And I highly recommend, if you grew up in an addicted home, that you invest some time in one of those events, one of those meetings, or you pick up a book called Codependent No More, or there's another book by Kiersey and Bates called there's another book called Please Understand Me by Kiersey and Bates. There's another great book by Gootnick, Gootnick. It's called Why You Behave in Ways You Hate. And then anything by David Hawkins is a main staple of your emotional library. Hawkins' brilliant book, Power versus Force, is not a book that you read. It is a book that you study. It is a book that you absolutely keep by your nightstand, take with you at all times, listen to while you drive, because that content will unequivocally assist you to understand the energy of addiction and the energy of recovery. When you're in an emotionally addicted state, you're transmuting your feelings at a very low level called apathy, grief, shame, guilt, anxiety, hate, resentment, and any multitude of other emotions that keep you in fear, doubt, and anxiety. As you begin to recover and you let go of the events that shape your feelings, you're moving into a much more consciously aware state. One of those common commonalities that hinders people is their fear of failing. Well, it's not really fear of failing that hinders you. It's the anxiety of being responsible. This is the bottom. This is what's underneath. When your mouth says, I don't want to fail, what you're really saying is, I'm not sure if I can control being responsible tomorrow. I know what I can do today, but I'm not sure if I can do this tomorrow. And that's what keeps you addicted to a set of feelings, and that's what keeps you holding on to the same set of feelings based on growing up in an addicted household. And then number 7, this is a very key component, attracting partners that are not emotionally available to fulfill abandonment. This merits a whole call. Attracting partners who are not emotionally available to fulfill your rejection, abandonment issues that you don't understand. You can't help but not do this. This is what happens when you grow up in an addicted household. You attract people who are familiar. I've done it. We all do it. It's all part of life, and it's also part of recovery. As you begin to no longer be the mind-body connection to the events that shape feelings, then you can be you and you are free. That's what letting go means. Now here are some ways that you can start to make some simple, subtle changes. By gaining awareness, number one. By being able to be more aware, consciously aware of why you do what you do, that means that you devote energy into the let go process. That's a state called know, K-N-O-W. Number two is you become objective. Objective means that you're not critical. You can be honest with self. You can be objective with self, but it doesn't mean you're critical. Being critical keeps you in an emotionally addicted state. Finish the day without being critical. The minute your mouth says, oh my God, that's going to be hard, you just relapse before you even started. Don't give it a shot. Commit to it. The rest of the day, monitor your word choices. Go the rest of the day without being critical. And then detachment. Detachment gets a bad rap. Most people understand that detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself not to continue to stay in conflict. You care enough about yourself to do something about the situation you're in. And you do it free of guilt. You're able to let people go that you no longer can be in relationships with. I don't like to say the word that no longer serve you, but you let people go that aren't relatable anymore. You let people go who they want to put you in conflict. You let people go who put you in a position that you're always wrong. And as you're able to separate your feelings from those events, you're in recovery. And then living in power. Power is esteem, and power is non-physical. It's not linear. Power is esteem. Esteem is regard for self, a higher regard for self, not from an egoic mind, but from a very relaxed emotional state called now, being in the present. And then last but not least, and this will merit a whole nother video, this would be changing who and what you attract. Attraction is a science. As you begin to understand the laws of attraction and the science of attraction, you'll begin to attract your reality, people and situations from a new set of feelings and a new set of emotions. The emotions of joy, love, bliss, permission, allowing. And this type of energy will attract the 2 or 3 people that you're looking for every 90 days, every 6 months, once a year, whatever the situation is. Synchronistically, on command, you'll attract your reality, a different set of prosperity partners that you can collaborate with. My name is Jeffrey Combs. I am the president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. Earlier on the call, I offered to 2 people who are seeking a free 20-minute coaching session, an additional value if you hire me, to go ahead and contact me on Facebook, and I will return your message immediately. Jeffrey Combs, you have a great afternoon. This call has been officially recorded and will be available on playback on iTunes and Podomatic tomorrow. You have a great day. Thank you for listening to the More Heart Than Talent Radio. If you enjoyed today's content and would like more insight and education to the breakthrough process, you can get my new Breakthrough Factor audio training for free today. It's 7 hours of breakthrough content to assist you to break through in life and business. This training is currently for sale on my website for $497, but I'm giving it to you for free as a bonus to persuade you to try my new coaching program called the Jeffrey Combs Inner Circle. It's my proven system to teach everyday people and entrepreneurs how to break through to success. When you join the Jeffrey Combs Inner Circle, you will participate in 2 private video coaching calls per month that you and my other members receive access to. On each call, the first half, I'll be teaching the skill of the week and giving you an assignment related to the topic. You will have the opportunity to post your homework in my private JCIC Facebook group. The Facebook group is a place where you can interact with me, my Golden Mastermind team, and other JCIC members. On the second half of the coaching call, I'll be coaching JCIC members one-on-one live for you to observe. As a member, you can register for your own live one-on-one coaching session during this call. They're all recorded and posted in the JCIC members area for you to review while you are an active member. You will also receive a new member's welcome kit and my new Breakthrough Factor audio program absolutely free for joining. You can sign up today for just $197. This is no ordinary coaching program. Sign up now to begin your breakthrough process now. Go to goldenmastermind.com/circle to get started today.